Let's start the show. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience, and I've continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. But enough of me. I'm here for you. On today's episode of the FV Show, we are continuing our All-32 NFL team preview series, taking a look at every NFL team through the lens of fantasy football. Up next, we continue our NFC North previews by taking a look at the Detroit Lions, a very sneakily good offense for 2020. But before we get started, a few quick things from you. First off, smash that subscribe button, power running back style so that you never miss a video from me. Secondly, hit that like button down below like an open receiver downfield, Patrick Mahomes style. And last but not least, follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture, and of course the website is ffvulture.com. On social media, my DMs are always open, so if you need fantasy advice, whatever the case may be sure to hit me up there because I can get back to you on a one-on-one basis. This is video number 3 on the day, at least that I'm recording. This will be posted, I think, Wednesday. But let's go. I might just knock out like 4 or 5 more of these. I don't know how the rest of the day is going to go. But let's start talking about the Detroit Lions and Matt Stafford, who finished quarterback 29 overall in 2019, right? But he was injured. He only played in 8 games, but he averaged 21.4 points per game during those 8 games. He started off the season on fire, at least the first half of the year. His new finish was quarterback 4, so he was lights out when he was playing, and that 29 finish really just reflects the fact that he did only play in 8 games. He finished 5 times as a quarterback 1, 2 times as a 2, and 1 time as a 3. 187 completions on 291 attempts, 2,499 yards, so just under 2,566 rushing yards, 19 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. So he just started off the season pretty much on fire, was on pace for essentially 40 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, which is just a great season, and he has a supporting cast to do this again in 2020. But I really just want to talk about those weekly finishes, right? So week 1, quarterback 4. Week 2, quarterback 13. Tanked week 3, that was his QB3 game. Week 4 was quarterback 6. Week 4 was quarterback 6. Week 7, quarterback 2. Week 8, quarterback 5. Week 9, quarterback 4, and then he missed the rest of the season due to injury. So he balled out, and he has the chance to do this again. Matt Stafford, for the entirety of his career so far, has been the epitome of the late-round quarterback. Every single year, he's the guy that gets overlooked, even though he's always been incredible for fantasy. I mean, his nickname is Matt Patford because he just pats his stats during the course of the season, and that equates to fantasy points, and we love fantasy points around here. He has the opportunity to do this again. The weapons are back. You get another year of TJ Hockenson in the offense. They added to the running back position through the draft we're going to talk about in just a moment. And I'm really excited for Stafford this season and their defense. They traded Darius Slay. Their defense is not that good. Maybe towards the bottom of the league. And that just equates to more, gunslinging from Matt, and that's great. That is so exciting, especially with where he's being drafted at. He's currently being drafted at QB 14 in the 10th round. And while that's not, that's not waiting for a quarterback, that's still waiting enough to where it counts, right? If you're sitting on a guy and you can use those first nine slots of your draft, your first 9 picks, to bulk up at running back and wide receiver and tight end, and then you grab Stafford, your team's going to look really solid coming out of the draft. I currently have him ranked as a quarterback 1 at quarterback 12, and that's just because I really buy into the fact of what he did last season. And really what he did last season was just a little bit of an inflated version of what we've seen Matt Stafford do throughout the entirety of his career, and that is just put up points. He puts up points. I'm very interested to see where Matt Stafford finishes as far as fantasy goes. Can I get a yearly? Let's see. I'm going to pull this up. Let's see. Fantasy Pros. All right. Because if I had to guess, Stafford probably finishes as a QB1 every single year. I would be shocked. So we did 2019, 20... 8. Was he injured in 2018? 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, No, he wasn't. He was not injured in 2018. He was just bad in 2018. He was quarterback 20 in 2018. So that ain't great. Quarterback 7 in 17. In 16. Quarterback 7. In 15. Quarterback 9. In 14. Quarterback 15. And then in 13. What was he drafted? 2012? Quarterback 7 and 13. Like, Matt Stafford is just consistently a top 10 quarterback for fantasy, and he's always drafted well beyond that. So I have him ranked as quarterback 12 right now. I gotta pull up. Where did my sheet just go? My rankings just absolutely disappeared. All right, let's pull these back up. So I have him ranked ahead of Aaron Rodgers, ahead of Cam Newton, Daniel Jones, Goff, Big Ben, Baker, Tannehill. And I have him behind Wentz, Brady, Josh Allen, Breeze, Ryan. I've had a hard time this season, admittedly, trying to figure out what late round guy I want to target. And Matt Stafford is he's in consideration for me just because I know what I'm going to get out of this offense, just because of the weapons that they have and because I know what Matt Stafford is as a fantasy quarterback. The only issue just for me personally is that he's not really a running quarterback at all. And that is how I like to use the quarterback position a lot. Just because I like to abuse the system. I've talked about this time and time again. It's the reason why I'm in on Lamar Jackson going in that second or third round this season for like the first time ever. I love guys like Michael Vick. I have Robert Griffin on my dynasty team as a backup just in case Lamar gets hurt. I have Cam Newton, love him. I just like abusing the system, and Stafford doesn't really fit that bill. But if you are just waiting on a late round quarterback, Stafford is a perfect option for that. He defines this every single season. Now let's talk about the running back position, and we're going to start off with Kerryon Johnson, who, to me, Kerryon Johnson is dead. And I hate saying that because of the fact that I own Kerryon Johnson in Dynasty. In our Dynasty startup last season, I actually traded my first round pick for 2020 in order to take Kerryon in the startup. So I'm sad. I am what we call a sad panda. So in 2019, Kerryon Johnson again got hurt for the second year in a row. Finished as running back 47 and 53. He averaged 10 points a game on 8 games played. His new finish is running back 29. If you hear the dog barking in the background, I apologize. I like to sneeze now. Uh-oh. Alright, so Kerryon had 1 game as a running back 1, 2 games as a 2, and 3 games as a 3. 113 touches, 10 receptions, 400 rushing yards, and 127 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. Kerryon, whenever he's been on the field, he's been pretty good. He hasn't been great, but he's been above average and good enough. But the big thing here is injuries. You are looking at a guy who is a bit of a fragile player. He's a smaller, skinnier running back, and he's just going to get hit naturally at the position. And he's a guy that already has had multiple injuries. I believe he was injured a bit in college as well, and so that's always been the concern. And through 2 years of the NFL, when he's been on the field, he's been productive, but the injuries are a problem. And that stinks because he is a very, very talented running back. But it hasn't been a great start to his NFL career. I think the thing that's crazy is Kerryon Johnson is only like 23. I think he's like 22 or 23. Let me pull this up real quick. Let's go Kerryon Johnson age. He is 23. I am older than Kerryon Johnson by, let's do math. I am older than Kerryon Johnson by 4 months. And it stinks because he is just super talented, and the injury, like, that's just the thing, right? And if you're not on the field, you can't perform. So for Kerryon Johnson this season, he's being currently drafted as running back 27, going at 6. Did I not change that? That's wrong. No, that's right. That is right. He's going, it's running back 27, 607. I have him ranked as running back 40. And that's simply just because who they brought in, let's bring him in now. We're just going to tie these two players together. Who they brought in, DeAndre Swift, is going to eventually emerge as the starting and lead running back in this offense. DeAndre Swift, running back out of Georgia, rookie. His player comparison is Todd Gurley. Now, I know what you're saying, right? Todd Gurley's incredible. How are you comparing Todd Gurley was incredible. How are you comparing DeAndre Swift to Todd Gurley? I'll tell you how. Because when I had my rookie notes and I was going through the rookie process during the beginning of this offseason and through the NFL draft, I was watching DeAndre Swift tape. And here are my thoughts, word for word in my notes. Holy shifty, holy speed, shot out of a cannon. Is he Todd Gurley? ? And their play styles are very, very similar. If you remember Todd Gurley's always been known for having like that one cut. He'll make his first move and then he'll just get by the defender. And Swift is very similar in that way. And they're both just speedsters where they aren't the fastest players on the field, but once you get them after their first cut, like they're gone. You will not be able to stop them. So I really do like that Todd Gurley comparison for DeAndre Swift for that reason. Swift also played in Georgia as well, which is not really why I made that Gurley comparison, but it is kind of funny. But the point that I wanted to make about him playing in Georgia is, Georgia's always been a running back factory, and so because of that, whether it was like Sony Michel or Todd Gurley or just whoever they have, Nick Chubb, they always have enough running backs to where they don't use one guy solely. It's not like Jonathan Taylor, who comes into the NFL with over 300 carries last season. DeAndre Swift had under 200 carries, 24 receptions, 1,200 rushing yards, 200 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. So there isn't a whole lot of wear and tear on his body, which is something that I'm really excited about entering his rookie campaign. He's also a little bit of a smaller back as well. He's 5'8". He's 212 as far as weight, and he runs a 4.4, 4.48. So I really like DeAndre Swift, and he can be a 3-down running back. That was what Kerryon Johnson was profiled to be. But if Kerryon Johnson isn't on the field, then obviously, because if he isn't on the field due to injury, like Swift is going to be a 3-down guy. And throughout Kerryon's career, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. So this is the bet that I'm willing to take, that Swift is going to eventually take over the starting job. I think the question that's really interesting between these two is, what does the beginning of the season look like? Because with the capital that the Lions took Swift at, they used their high second-round pick. They had the third pick in the second round. And they decided to take DeAndre Swift over maybe a different player. And what that signals to me is this coaching staff does not believe that Kerryon Johnson is the guy. So how long is it going to be until we see this shift where this workload maybe is a timeshare at first, and it now shifts to, let's say, DeAndre Swift 65% of the time, 70% of the time? I don't know. And the question that I'm really asking myself is, what does this timeshare look like to start the season? I anticipate it to look kind of like Green Bay, where if you remember what the Packers did last season between Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, they weren't rotating play-wise, they were more rotating drive-wise, where the first drive or the first 2 drives would be all Aaron Jones, and then the next drive would be Jamal Williams. And that was always a nightmare to try and figure out, because as an Aaron Jones owner, I talked about this in my Packers preview, there were just times where Jones just wouldn't see the field, and you would just be really confused because he was in the 2 drives beforehand. So I don't know what this looks like early in the season. But for me, DeAndre Swift is a guy that you're going to hold for the first 4 to 5 weeks. Luckily, you're getting him in the 9th round, and then he'll be a league winner towards the second half of this season, because he'll eventually just take over the starting job and take over the majority of the work. So his ADP is currently running back 37 going in the 9th round. I have him ranked as running back 29, which is 11 spots higher than where I have Kerryon Johnson. Like I said, Kerryon for me is dead. He's dead, and I hate saying that because I did trade my first-round dynasty pick this season in order to get him last year. And that first-round pick would have been mighty nice to have this season. I actually had to trade up for somebody else's first-round pick in order to jump back into that first round. So I'm all in on Swift, especially because in that 9th round, similar to Matt Stafford, you can load up at the running back position where, by the 9th round, you will have 3 or 4 running backs already. And so because of that, you're not going to be relying on DeAndre Swift for the first half of the season because you have other options. And then once he booms and once he actually breaks out in his NFL career, then he's going to have a great second half of the season for you, and then you can pretty much start him. I'm going to assume pretty much every single week, or at the minimum, he'll be a great flex option for you. So I am excited for DeAndre Swift, but he's more so a second half of the year type player, kind of similar to Jonathan Taylor in that way for me. Now let's talk about the wide receiving options for this team. We're going to start off with Kenny Golladay, one of my favorite wide receivers in the NFL. In 2019, he finished as the wide receiver 3 in standard and 6 in PPR. He had 6 games as a wide receiver 1, 3 games as a wide receiver 2, and 2 games as a wide receiver 3. He saw 116 targets, 65 catches, 1,190 yards, and 11 touchdowns. When you look at his adjusted score, 13.5 points per game on all 16 games played. New finish of wide receiver 9, so he does dip a little bit. But what I really want to talk about here is Kenny Golladay we saw emerge as a true and special talent last season. The Lions quarterback play after Matt Stafford went down was horrific. And despite that, he still put up numbers, and that is really encouraging because that means that the talent is there. The talent is there, the talent is true, and now we're going to get him with a full season of a healthy Matt Stafford. When you look at what Golladay did after Stafford went down, I believe that was week 9, he had a game of wide receiver 17, a game of wide receiver 16, a game of wide receiver 3, and a game of wide receiver 12. So we did see the fact that he is able to be productive despite the quarterback play. Obviously, that number is going to vary because of the inconsistent quarterback play overall, but he still was able to be manageable and startable during those weeks with poor quarterback play. But really, the important thing here is that he did when Stafford was starting, he did have 4 games as a wide receiver 1 and 1 game as a high-end wide receiver 2 coming in at wide receiver 14 on the week during week 6. Kenny Golladay he's a special player. The thing that I'm really interested about is the targets and the catches, right? So you're looking at those numbers right now, and there were 50 balls that were either dropped or just errant throws, and probably more so the latter than drops. And so that number, to me, has to come up, especially with the improvement of Stafford coming in as quarterback for the majority, or for hopefully all of the season, barring health concerns. So for me, Kenny Golladay, I have him ranked as my wide receiver 7. He's being drafted as wide receiver 8. I think he continues to impress the NFL and really cement himself as one of the top young wide receivers in this league. I'm all in on Kenny Golladay. If you want to take him as your wide receiver 1, I don't hate that. You're probably going to have to if you want him. Unless he's going at 211. So let's see. You would have, so if you start off, so you would probably, if he's going at 211, you would essentially start off your draft. You would have essentially a top 3 pick. So you're going to go with either Barkley, CMC, or Zeke, let's just say. And then on the turn, you could have Kenny G and somebody else, or you can have Kenny G and another wide receiver, so who, depending on who's the one that you draft, and then, or you can just make him just your number 1 option, and you can go, let's just say CMC on the turn. Who's on the turn there at the running back position? You could have CMC, Austin Eckler, and then Kenny G. That's an interesting combination. That's just things I'm thinking about. Like, how comfortable are you with Kenny G as your number 1? I think on the surface you're kind of like, because I think it might not feel great, and that's just because, Kenny G isn't fully established. There are other players that are more established than Kenny G, like DeAndre Hopkins, like Tyreek Hill. Who's another top 10 wide receiver that I'm blanking currently? Let's see, pull it up. Like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, right? Like, those names sound better as your number 1 than Kenny G, but I promise you Kenny G is going to give you great games, and he is going to finish as a top 10 wide receiver, and he could finish in the top 5 as well if Stafford stays healthy for a full season. Now let's move over to one of the most underrated wide receivers in fantasy football. He's very similar to Jarvis Landry in this way, and this is just a player that outperforms his ADP every single season, and that is Marvin Jones. In 2019, he finished as wide receiver 27 in both standard and PPR. He had 4 games as wide receiver 1, 0 games as a 2, and 3 games as a 3. 91 targets, 62 catches, 779 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Marvin Jones is known for getting in the end zone. 12.5 points per game on 13 games played. His new finish is wide receiver 21. So if you look at that, he averaged 1 less point than Kenny G, his own teammate. So like, you're looking at 2 guys here that could easily finish as a duo of top 24 wide receivers. His current ADP is wide receiver 42 going in the 9th round in the middle of the 9th. I have him ranked as wide receiver 31. It needs to be higher because I know he's going to finish better than his ADP. So I definitely have him above his ADP. But I still feel like I might be too low. And I actually just moved him up a spot ahead of Julian Edelman before I started recording this episode. Marvin Jones, that's interesting. I want to pull that up. Let's see. I want to pull up Marvin Jones fantasy finishes. All right, let's do this year by year. 2013, wide receiver 22. All right, let's see. Where does he finish in 2014? All right, we're just gonna go Control F Jones. That's Julio. I don't care about Julio. I can just do Marvin, shouldn't I? All right, 2014, not found. That doesn't help me. Was he injured? He might have been injured. Let's see. 2015. 2015, wide receiver 39, and I think the run starts after 2015. Ooh, am I wrong here? Marvin Jones, wide receiver 38, which is still above his ADP right now. 2017. Marvin Jones was number 5 overall. And 2018. In 2018, Marvin Jones was wide receiver 56, but he only played in 9 games and he averaged 9 points per game. On that, so that would probably move him up to about wide receiver 35 or so. So, ultimately, even still, right now with this current ADP, he is being drafted well behind where he's going to finish. He's going to finish as a top 36 wide receiver. He's been a top 36 wide receiver pretty much every single year of his fantasy career, dating back to 2013. And so every single year he gets devalued, and every single year I'm targeting Marvin Jones for that reason. If you want to wait on wide receiver, I think he's an excellent candidate for you. He's obviously not going to finish inside the top 15 most likely, but you are looking at a guy that can easily finish inside the top 36, probably closer to 30 or so. And that has me really excited because you don't have to rely on him as your number one option. But if you're using him as a depth piece, he's incredible because you can start him every single week as a flex option or a wide receiver 2 on a bye, and you're going to get production from him, especially in this offense with Matt Stafford gunslinging the football like he always does whenever he's on the field. Finally, let's talk about TJ Hockenson, the crash and burn tight end of 2019. That's what we're going to label him as. In standard, tight end 32, tight end 31 in PPR, 2 games as a tight end 1, 5 games as a tight end 2, 1 game as a tight end 3, 59 targets, 32 catches, 367 yards, and 2 touchdowns. When you look at the adjusted score, 5.4 points per game on 12 games played, new finish of tight end 25. The story here with TJ Hockenson is that he burned a ton of people last season. Hockenson came out week 1, and he put up an absolute electric performance. He finished as tight end 2 on the week, and everybody spent a ton of their fab dollars to get Hockenson. And what did he do for you the rest of the season? Absolutely nothing. He was horrific. He was bad. He didn't see the ball. Whatever the case may be, TJ Hockenson left people with scars. And I don't know what to expect from him this season. I am very hesitant on him just because we didn't see it. We saw it for 1 game last year, and that was it. And I'm not willing to spend my only tight end pick on a guy like that. So he's currently being drafted as tight end 15 in the 11th round. I need to pull up Sleeper real quick. He's currently being drafted as tight end 15 at 11:04. I'm also ranked as tight end 15, but I can tell you this, there are tons of others tight ends that I would rather have. I think that are actually going later. So let's see. I'm going to pull up the ADP right now. So TJ Hawkins' ADP in the 11th round. Currently going behind him is Jonnu Smith, Eric Ebron, Blake Jarwin, Chris Herndon, Ian Thomas, Greg Olsen. Those are all guys that I like. If I were to rank those, I don't know. Hockenson to me just has a lot of risk because this offense predominantly revolves around the wide receivers more than anything else, and the fact that they did just draft DeAndre Swift, and they're going to try and focus in on the running game just a little bit more. Like, Matt Stafford always had Eric Ebron, and maybe this is an Eric Ebron thing where he just didn't develop, but we saw Eric Ebron blossom in Indianapolis when he got away from Detroit. And so with that, I don't know if it's either Stafford or the offense, and obviously the offense is a little bit different, but I don't know how much the tight end is actually going to be valuable in Detroit. I'm very worried. I was gonna pull something up with Eric Ebron or with Hockenson real quick. Let's see. Hockenson. All right. So one thing that I really wanted to look at was targets, and this is more so really what I'm talking about here. So week 1 last season, his boom game against Arizona, because of course it was. Arizona was awful against tight ends last season. It was always start your tight ends whenever they were facing the Cardinals. He had 9 targets, 6 receptions, 131 yards, and 1 touchdown. So I'm just going to read you off his numbers with Stafford at quarterback. 3 targets, 4 targets, 3 targets, 6, 5, 1, 7. He just didn't see consistent targets. And for the tight end position where you only get to start one of them, targets are a big factor. So I don't know if it's a Stafford thing. I don't know if it is just a Detroit Lions system thing. But the tight end just isn't as involved as we'd like it to be, and that's okay. So I'm staying away from Hockenson this season. I want to see it first. I want to see it for almost a full season before I make any sort of decision on him. So I'm going to stay away from TJ Hockenson in 2020, and honestly probably try again in 2021. Unless the only caveat is I will not draft Hockenson. I'll let him sit on the waiver wire, see what plays out for the first portion of the week or for the first portion of the season, and then make a potential free agent acquisition after that. But I don't want to take the gamble on Hockenson, at least not right now. But I think that's going to do it for all of our Detroit Lions player previews. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. We're doing this pretty much every single day all through the rest of August. The goal is to be finished by August 30th. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are already having your draft, so if you have any draft questions that you need to be answered, be sure to shoot me a message on all social media at FFVulture. Once again, the website is ffvulture.com. I'm trying to update that thing pretty much every other day. I'm putting a lot of great content out on Instagram right now. I got some cool graphics made, so we're just working on like player stats and quotes that are coming out of camp, and really just trying to create a well-rounded fantasy experience over there. I love doing these player profiles. They're so much fun for me because I do get to kind of create these little snapshots for what a player did last season and then talk about their projection for this season. I like seeing that contrast. And I think that's it. We got anything else? We're going to do the Chicago Bears. We're going to wrap up the NFC North tomorrow. So be sure to stick around for that by hitting that subscribe button down below. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever. I will see you next time. Later.